Hello, guys, and blessings. I normally would play my music before I start on my lives, and I decided not to because my monetization is back, and I don't want this video to get blocked or to get limited to certain audiences. So, this is High Priestess Jamila, and I wanted to come and talk about something that I feel is very, very important. And this is something that I'm surprised I have not spoken about before, but I'm going to go ahead and talk about it now because I think it's very important. However, you know, I have seen some people do and some pretty disparaging things to people like myself. I've even had it coming from my own family sometimes, people that are in your family that just don't respect you. They want you to still be regarded as if you were 5 years old. And, you come to find out, this person is hating on you and disparaging you, infantilizing you is just really horrible. And it's not even necessary because the reason why I wanted to have this discussion is because a lot of people think that spiritual advice versus practical advice, or when you're just sitting around with your friend girls and you're having a conversation, which typically those kinds of conversations typically are very biased and emotional. They are not necessarily being given, through the eyes of what we call a psychic reading. Okay. Or either like sometimes it's a full out spiritual investigation. And I wanted to come and talk about this because um, a lot of people want to personalize it. And I know that there are some people that are going to get upset about this because they feel that they are experts in this and experts in that. When, especially if that person has some kind of partnership with a male or a female, or, some of these male practitioners out here, if they don't have some kind of woman, that is under their belt, then, they usually will have, it's like a codependency on the opposite sex. And I think that that is used a great deal for advertising. But to me, I think that it takes away from the spiritual nature of what we do. I don't try to sell my readings using sex necessarily. I don't try to sell my readings by, I don't do that, and I've never done it. I've been in business since 2015. And honestly, I've been aligned with a lot of clients, and I don't do that. So, the difference between spiritual advice versus just giving somebody practical advice is what I wanted to talk about. Uh, for example, if you have some kind of issue, and I think one of the most practical issues would be possibly, relationship issues, issues within marriages and things of that nature. And when you come to a reader, no matter what it is that that reader is experiencing in their life, if they are a good reader and if they are good at what they do, um, then they're going to be able to read the situation and tell you what's going on without looking through the scope of biasness and from an emotional standpoint. Okay. So, for example, I've handled a lot of different, very complex cases of um, male possession. And, let me just say this first of all. Many of us practitioners, healers, witches that are out here offering work to people and readings, we're under judgment, which to me is sexism, which is past life, something involved with past life history that I refuse to allow to affect me in this life. But I'm going to tell you straight up and down that judging witches based upon us being single or either having relationship problems is pointless, because most, in my humble opinion, and this is not biasness, this is something that is across the board, and most people will admit to this, is that most men have been ruined by religion. That's a fact. Like, it's a part of that toxic masculinity that many of us do not accept. And so you're gonna find that it's harder out there because it's so many of them are just possessed by it. So speaking of possession, when you when y'all come to us for spiritual advice and readings, a lot of the times what you're dealing with is more than likely possession of some kind of necromantic witchcraft. Now, honestly, if it's a man that you're constantly having to adjust and fix and do all this stuff, and you're constantly having to do spiritual work, I am impartial to that. You know what I'm saying? Like, it shouldn't be constant. You know, if he's made certain assertions or love offers to you, promises to you that he can't keep, and he's very unstable, and he's constantly flip-flopping and going back and forth, that don't have nothing to do with spiritual work. That's just the will of that man, and sometimes it just is what it is. I call it being willfully stupid, is what I call it. Okay. But my whole thing about it, here's my whole thing about it, is that when you sitting around talking to your friend girls and y'all talking about like relationships and stuff, and some of your friends may give you advice, that's just practical advice, which is okay, which is good. But when you come to a reader is reading the situation from a standpoint, or at least I am going to break down to you exactly what's going on. And you know what? A lot of the times, sometimes it depends on the situation. That's just how he is. He's just like that. And there's no amount of spiritual work that is going to change this person or the situation. It just is what it is. So, but we can read the situation and we can look, like, for me, I can determine the difference between classic possession, black magic, witchcraft versus this is just how this person functions as a person. So there's a difference. There's a big difference. Okay. Now, there are cases where I believe that it's genuine possession. I really do. I think that, and sometimes that can prove and serve to be very dangerous. It can be, if you don't have the proper protection from that person. Like, for example, that case that was in Georgia, a lot of people are basing their opinion on it based upon what they heard the two of them say, which was that both of them went to practitioners to get love spells on each other. But in reality, what ended up happening was, to me, what led that man to take his wife out was breakup work, and it was very messy breakup work. Okay, very messy. It was not meant. It was not something that somebody went to somebody and said, "Hey, I want to be with this man or I want to be with this woman," and it was a responsible person, a practitioner that could break the couple up without causing murder. This was actually just like this, somebody put something on them people to take them out, and they played around with it, and that's the result of it. I see that happening all the time. But I mean, but it can, love spells can become dangerous sometimes, but I guess it would depend, especially with the prevalence of so many people using in tranquil spirits and doing black magic love work, which I don't necessarily agree with. I feel that, some of the stuff that especially a lot of these men want, but then women are guilty of it too. They want to depend on spiritual work, voodoo, hoodoo, binding spells, domination spells to hold on to people, versus just being a good person and being somebody that that person would want to stay with. I don't necessarily agree with that, but you know what I'm saying? Like, back to what I was talking about and discussing when it comes to spiritual advice and coming to us and getting readings, it is not the same as being a life coach. Like, I mean, I do provide spiritual coaching for people, Reiki sessions, things of that nature. I do all of that. However, it is a different perspective. Basically, when you're just sitting around with your friend girls and y'all talking or whatever, and y'all, going back and forth about men or whatever, that is you looking at a situation through from the earthly perspective. When you're getting a reading, the reader is actually reading that situation from the astral etheric and looking at how it is affecting the earthly manifestation of it. So we're actually looking at it through spirit versus looking at it in a different way, looking at it as just, oh well, I know somebody did that, and mama, and do it. It's very, very different. It's not the same. For example, there are real cases uh where you may see, like, for example, when it comes to relationships, your man may be doing something that you don't want him to do, and there could be a practitioner that's actually using demonic stuff on that person to manifest what they want. Could be doing that. That could be happening. Do I suggest you seeking vengeance? I don't. In particular, if you have a cheating man, you need to check your man, unless it's a woman that went out of her way to, like, you know capture this man and just randomly. But if your man is facilitating that type of stuff, I would not just go after people like that. I would get a better man in my life, or either ask him to change or something. I wouldn't be just always at war. But that's just me personally. I like to do things easy in life, and I like to, have more adaptable, calmer, more relaxed situations to where I'm not always fighting over something and arguing and bickering and having a bunch of drama. I'm not the drama type of person. I hate drama, I do. I hate it. I'd rather have quiet and peace. So for example, like, if that happens and I look and because I do read through the cards. But then a lot of times, especially like if you are being overrun with intranquil spirits or other spirits that succubus spirits, incubus spirits, I can sense that and feel that from the moment that we start your reading, or even when you purchase your reading. I can already see it. It's just confirmed by the cards. But the reason why I like the cards is because it gets very specific, especially when it's some kind of bad spirit that's on a person. If it's a bad spirit, it's gonna come out in the cards. The cards are going to show the bad spirit, and then sometimes even where it originated from. So it's very, very different. There's a lot of people going around saying things like, oh, she can't give this and she can't do that. But in reality, if we are an expert at reading spirit, that has nothing to do with even what is manifesting in our real life. Cause and I personally, as a reader, I don't put, to me as a woman, and with the circumstances that I have dealt with as a woman, as a mother, as a grandmother, a man is not everything to me. The moment that a man starts to make me feel as though I am not taking care of my responsibilities, or that I am failing my family, and he does not support me, I don't want to deal with him, and I don't care. I'm the type of person that I don't mind being single. I'm not going to sit around and argue with a man and feel like, oh my God, I need this man to validate me. And oh my God, if he doesn't validate me and do what I say, no, I'm not the type of person to do that, especially when I have other plans anyway. And I know that men come sometimes a dime a dozen, and that's just what it is. Okay. I'm not the type of person that's going to go nuts and crazy over what a man is doing and judge a woman based upon what a man says. I don't believe in that type of misogyny. I don't believe in that type of sexist behavior. And we just don't do that. Now, it's not to say that I don't believe that relationships are important. Of course they are. You know what I'm saying? Like, but at the end of the day, the earth is crawling with these men that are not even tapped in, crown chakras closed. They halfway possessed, and it's not shocking that there's so many problems in in this world because of what we're dealing with. So and it just is what it is. Okay. um but when we're like, for me, I don't want to say we, I'm talking about me. I'm talking about me. When I do a reading on somebody, and somebody, like, for example, if somebody comes and tells me some problems that they having, girl, that man is abusive. Girl, this da da da. I mean, more than likely that's what he is if he's being abusive, especially if he's been that way from the beginning. But if he has been good to you, never, because really, to be honest with you, the way my standards are set when it comes to men is that they never speak disrespectfully, never speak out of context, never make any mistakes. There's a difference between a mistake and a bad habit and a person being the way that they are. If this person was always good to you and never did, like, out the gates, this person was very respectful, they never called you out of your name, then more than likely, if a few, maybe 10 years later, or just all of a sudden he gets to flipping out, we can look, or at least I can look into the cards and say, well, and then I can also see if he hid it and held that side of himself, hid that side of himself for a long time, and then finally decided to come out with it. But more than likely, if that's not the case, it could be a case of possession, spiritual attack, somebody trying to tear you down. Okay. But if a man is just what do we call them? If he's just ignorant and he's the type of person that probably should just stay away from women, like he shouldn't, because y'all do know that there's a lot of women that, like, I'm gonna tell you something, and I am the same way essentially. Some of the things that y'all see these men doing, the way that they talk, and most women would not even give them a second glance, let alone a man talking crazy to her. There's a lot of women. I mean, can you imagine if you're on a first date with a dude and he starts calling you out of your name? Like, nobody's going to, like, she's literally going to say, hey, I'm going to go to the bathroom real quick. I'll be back. And then she's going to call a Lyft or either one of her friends to pick her up. There's not, most women that are normal are not going to continue a relationship or even see a man again that is calling her out of her name. It's just like, you know what I'm saying? And if somebody does that from the beginning, that's just the habits that they're in. That's just how they are. And there's no amount of witchcraft that's going to change him. He needs to be able to want to change. And more than likely, if he's a certain age, he ain't gonna never change. If a man is 30, 40, or 50 years old, damn near 60, calling women out of their name, acting like he just walked out of a bad rap video or something, please believe that that's just the way that person is. He ghetto, he a dusty. More than likely, you don't want him. More than likely, you don't want a man like that, because all they do is bring embarrassment, and they think they being a player when in reality they're just very unstable and opening you up to a bunch of BS and drama. So, I mean, you know what I'm saying? So, or for example, if they're doing that and then that, like, it's certain characteristics, it's certain characteristics, you know what I'm saying, that are going to show from the beginning. But if he just all of a sudden, and you've been able to go 365 or 366 days out of the year, like, if somebody is able to just be cool, know how to have a conversation, know how to talk to somebody, know how to resolve your differences and conflicts amicably, and he's respectful, and he ain't never called you out of your name for 5, 6 years, couple of years, even a year, and then all of a sudden he's a different person, that's either his mask has came off or he could be possessed. Could be some kind of sorcery. So that advice that we give to you is very different. And what I found is that when I throw my cards, like, it directly tells you exactly what's going on. Like, if you're like, well, damn, this man was cool at first and da 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 da. And then all of a sudden, I'm seeing the high priestess inverted, the Hierophant inverted, and Five of Wands, and the Death card, and the Devil card. Well, you know what? That high priestess is saying, hey, this person's mask done came off. That's who he is, more than likely, innately. And the high priestess can be taken as somebody doing work on this person, but it depends on what spirit is saying for that particular reading. And so that's why it can sometimes take a spiritual investigation. Most of y'all are not going to come to us or come to me. I keep saying us because I like to be a trailblazer for the spiritual community. I'm not pressed and tight, because, um, when y'all come to me and pay me your money, I like to give you the quality and give you the best answers possible. It's never going to be based upon my emotions that I'm feeling for somebody else. Like, girl, he's so and so and so, and I'm mad. I don't ever bring anger and resentment into my readings. I always keep a clear head and heart space when I'm doing these readings for y'all, so that you can get the correct answer that you need. Okay, it's never going to be based upon some dude that made me mad or whatever. No, I'm going to read your situation, not mine. So that's another thing. So spiritual advice is very different. I see a lot of females that, they're like, praise Jesus, I'm Christian, I rebuke you for doing the work that you do even though you don't understand it. And they're trying to give this advice to people, but in reality spiritual advice is very different. It is structured very different. It's not very different. It's not gossip. It's not based upon some woman's emotions. Because half your friend girls, sometimes their jealousy will come out of you anyway, will come out of them anyway. And that's why sometimes you got to leave some people alone, because anybody that's jealous of you to that capacity to where they're just very negative all the time, you don't need that type of person in your life. You don't. Okay. So spiritual advice versus regular advice is very different. Uh Doing psychic readings, medium readings is very different from being a life coach. Not the same. Everything that's happening in the astral um is manifesting in the physical. So it's not like, you know, um going to see a therapist is very different. In fact, witches and spiritualists, we're not therapists, we're not mental health technicians, we're not, because that to me is a totally different thing. Mental health can be helped sometimes, but I think that the doctors and the psychiatrists, they are much more well versed when a person's mind is misfiring and is doing certain things. And if you're going to see a therapist, for example, for anxiety or certain things that you have going on, yes, a spiritualist can definitely help you, especially if that therapist has not been able to help you and they've been trying to help you for the longest. Okay. And I actually this was when I still lived in Kansas. I lived in Kansas back in 2014 before I moved to Georgia, which we're leaving soon. But and I didn't throw the cards before I came to Georgia. Anyway, it's a long story. Um, I wasn't even reading cards back then, to be honest with you. I accidentally bit into a stink bug that was like hiding out, luck of the draw. It was in my can of spinach, and I can't say for legal purposes what brand of spinach it was because I got a little small settlement for that. Okay. And so I can't speak and be detailed about it. And so for some reason after that, I just had this thing to where like I had to dissect all of my food to make sure it wasn't any bugs in it. And I couldn't eat spinach, which spinach was a large part of my diet because I was actually doing like keto back then because I just had my baby. I was losing weight from having my baby. And so I actually went to see a therapist mainly because I was suing the company. But what I realized is that my therapist was so cool. Like she was really cool and she was talking to me, she was asking me, like, mainly we was sitting down talking about what we both did for a living. And she said, you know what, I can send some people to you because I believe that these people that I can't help, you can help them. And then you can send people to me that you feel like need therapy. So she was really a cool lady. I hope she's doing well these days. Sometimes there's a time for actual real psychiatry, and then sometimes there's a time for spiritual stuff, and then but both at the same time can be of a great benefit to you. So anywho, That's just my little tidbit on that. But it's very different. I wanted y'all to be able to discern and decipher the difference. First of all, it's in a different type of environment. It's not in an environment where there's gossip. If you get a reading by someone like myself, who is very ethical and also very empathetic, and I am an empath, but I'm empathic, and you know, you're in an environment where you get real answers as to what is weird, goofy stuff. Because I'm gonna tell you, if it's weird and goofy, may have something to do with some spiritual stuff, especially if it's like Alice in Wonderland, unreal, like what in the world, what is this? It's not an environment to where you have to worry about somebody gossiping about you or judgment. It's not based upon judgment at all. It's based upon, okay, this is the situation. It's not even necessarily about predicting the future, because the future can always be changed if it is a spiritual situation that can be dealt with by spirit. Okay. So, for example, if I'm reading the energies, like if I throw the cards for you, I'm not looking at the future. I'm not always looking at an outcome. I could be looking at current, and I'm going to be able to discern and ask my guides, tell me what's currently going on. That has nothing to do with, oh, I predicted this in the future, because the future can always change. It can always be better. It can be made for the better, or sometimes it's unavoidable. Okay. So, that's another thing about it. Reading the cards and reading these situations is not always about just predicting a future outcome, because outcomes can always change. And this is the reason why I've never minded telling people the truth, and not just giving these readings where I'm just like telling people, oh, everything's going to work out fine and everything's going to be good. If it's not, if I see it, I'm going to read it. Because if you know that an outcome is coming up for you that you don't like, it's good for you to know, because a lot of people can change it. And a lot of people will think that readers are just saying negative things, and that's why I'm saying, like it's best to get a private reading with people, instead of having a long-term situation where you're just going to different channels and readings and listening. And when it comes to the tarot community, if you have a major issue, it's important for you to not, because a general reading for a YouTube channel, I wouldn't even want to go by that, even though they can be very accurate. But every message is not going to necessarily resonate for you. So it's kind of best to just get your own reading, you know, to get a private reading with somebody that's trusted, and somebody that's not going to, be dishonest with you. You know what I'm saying? So, but I think that what ended up happening with the spiritual community is that people kind of wanted these readings to be personal, that and they're not. Like, for example, the readings that I'm putting up, I'm going to wait until later on today to do the air signs. But the readings that I'm putting up, it may not resonate for you. It depends. I used to get thousands of views on my readings before my channel got falsely flagged. But it could be 5 views on that video, to where at least 2 or 3 of those people, or they're not going to manifest what I'm talking about. It could just be, you know what I'm saying? It could be different. It could vary. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not reading for anybody personally on any of my channels. I'm just reading the cards and what messages spirit wants me to give in general to whoever might be watching that video. So it's kind of weird how people will connect to these readings. But to be honest with you, sometimes you have to understand. And then I've actually had people accuse me of cursing people and speaking bad on people during the readings. And I don't do things like that. I don't try to curse people with my words. I don't do things like that. You know, I'm a witch and it works very differently. So I'm not, and I don't worry about spoken curses either, because people try to be they're very gossipy and strange, and they will try to speak stuff on you in a New York minute just because. So, you know, I believe in somebody running their mouth, but I also believe in the power of magic, and I believe in the power of securing, especially when it comes to important situations. You know what I'm saying? So, and you know, that's another thing that we see a lot happening is, you know, people having things spoken against them, and you know, sometimes spoken very repetitively. I do believe that there are some people that do have power in the tongue, and if somebody's trying to hurt you with their words, and I'm gonna tell you something, and they keep speaking it over and over again, that person can be shut down. They can be shut down. They can run their mouth all they want and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk until they are blue in the face. But securing yourself is very, very important. I think that that is probably one of the most seductive things about religion, because we all know that in Christianity and in the Bible actually says your tongue is your fiercest weapon. As a witch, my pen, my flail, whatever they call it, you know what I'm talking about. My ink, my pen, my vision, that's my weapon, not my tongue. You know, in fact, I like to save my breath on a lot of things, and I tend to be very quiet unless I'm speaking something. I mean, you know, as a high priestess, I can tell you that there have been plenty of times where I have had to command negative spirits away. And just FYI, another thing I want to clear up, there are many, 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 many negative biblical spirits as well. It's not just about witchcraft. There are negative spirits that can come from anywhere. Yeah, there are negative spirits that can come from out of anywhere. So it's not just, oh, Christian good, witch paganism bad. Negative spirits that's the Bible is filled with negativity and evil spirits. It is. Evil spirits that for some reason don't even realize how evil they are. It's just, you know, so that's why you guys know that I'm not Christian, and I'm a very fair and just person, and I just don't do stuff like that. I really don't. So, you know, but you know what I'm saying? So, a lot of people think that, and I think that that's a part of the brainwashing or something, because I've known people that are Christian that are the most evil, do the most evil, versus someone that is even Satanist that would never hurt a damn fly, that would never hurt anybody, not a person, not a child, not a woman, not a man, not an animal. So that's actually not the truth all the time. So, you know, just FYI on that. Anywho, that's pretty much it. I hope that you guys enjoyed this discussion, and I gotta go. Thank you so much for listening and watching. Make sure that you guys hit that subscribe button if you're new to the channel. Uh, please hit that thumbs up. I'd appreciate it for the algorithm. It really helps me out as far as, like, you know, getting the word out so that people can have more of an understanding. I know that there's literally a war on the tarot community, which is ridiculous. There are things, many, many things that I could say that really irritates a lot of people, and I've already said it, so I'm not going to say it. But what I can tell you is that I'm not in the business of mixing reading cards and doing what I do and trying to mix it with the Bible. I don't do that over here because I don't agree with doing that. And if other people want to do it, that's perfectly fine. I just don't want that kind of chaos and problems over here. Okay. All right, guys. And anyway, peace and love to y'all. I will see y'all later. Okay. All right. And if you guys want good expert spiritual advice, somebody that's actually reading spirit to provide you with useful information, non-biased, you can visit divineservicesapothecary.com, which is my link tree. Okay. So that's where I'm at. Website, right now I think I know for I'm gonna be back on A soon. Than that, it's PayPal, it's my link tree, it's Cash App, and you guys can just contact me at my contact information below. All right, I'll see y'all soon. Blessings to y'all. Have a good one. Bye bye.